Hi, Founder fans. Jason here, and today's founder is Haym Salomon. Haym Salomon is probably best known as the Jew who saved the American Revolution. So Solomon came to the United States, or soon to be United States, in 1775. He was originally from Portugal, but his family had been kind of forced out because of their religion, bounced around a little bit. He grew up in Poland and then bounced around a little bit more in Europe as a young man before finally coming to New York City, where he established a bank and became fabulously successful right away. He did an extraordinarily good job with it because just months after getting to New York, he joined the Sons of Liberty, despite the fact that many of his patrons were, well, loyalists. Eventually, the British actually arrest Solomon for siding with the Patriots, and he's brought to prison where he's kept in terrible conditions and ends up getting sick, a sickness that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He was released on parole as long as he would translate English to German for the British who were trying to communicate with the Hessian soldiers that were there to help them. But he didn't do this, so he went back to prison and was sentenced to death. But fortunately, he had made a lot of money and was able to bribe his way to an escape. And he fled to Philadelphia, where he became friendly with people like Robert Morris and Gouverneur Morris, who at the time were trying to fund a war of independence. And while Robert Morris is very famous for being the financier of the American Revolution, he was in charge of the money, but Haym Salomon was really the one who was recruiting the funds. He was the one soliciting these donations. And additionally, this fortune he had made, Solomon spent on the American Revolution, trying to help soldiers, helping individual people who were also bankrupted by the revolution. Solomon became so important that there's a story that not only have I heard several times, but there are books with this title of his big famous line. It's very difficult for me to locate the actual letter from George Washington, but as the story goes, and again, so many people have said it in so many places that I have to assume it's true, George Washington was ready to move the Continental Army south to Yorktown. It was time to leave New York and New Jersey and go win this war already. But he needed to pay his soldiers. He needed $20,000. So he wrote to Robert Morris and said, "Hey, Robbie, give me this cash." And Robert Morris said, "We don't have any cash." And George Washington wrote back, "Send for Haym Salomon." Because even the commander-in-chief knew who was getting the money to pay for this revolution. It was Haym Salomon. Now, sadly for Solomon, he would go bankrupt, spending all of his money on the American Revolution. And even more sadly, by 1785, he passed away because of the disease he got in prison while siding with the Patriots. Now, this is the story of Haym Salomon. It's very interesting the way Jews relate to the American Revolution. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the description below of a video I made right when I started this channel. It's not great. I'm basically whispering. I'm wearing my hoodie. It's not right. I've since learned how to speak properly on camera. But it's interesting. I do go into depth on Jews generally in the American Revolution, how there were only about 2,000 Jews in the colonies when the revolution began, out of about 2.5 million people, including 500,000 or so slaves. There were 2.5 million people, and only 2,000 of them were Jews, and a large number of the Jews ended up siding with the Patriots. And it's interesting because, first of all, when you're reading about men like Haym Salomon and David Franks, people like that, Jews from the American Revolution, you hardly ever hear anything about their religion. It's fascinating. I've run into more people questioning whether they could trust Catholics than questioning if they could trust the Jews. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and I will put a link to that in the description below. It's also hard for me to talk about. It's always questionable when you talk about Jews running banks because they open yourself up to conspiracy theorists. But Haym Salomon did that and did it very well. And like I said, helped pay George Washington the money he needed to win at Yorktown and create the United States of America. So thank you, Haym Salomon. I am making this video in celebration of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement for Jews. If you're not familiar, I always find Yom Kippur a fascinating holiday in general because the idea is to take some time and fast for a day and think about what you've done wrong in the past year and talk to yourself about how you can improve for the future. It's a great method of self-improvement. So that's a side note. A little bit more than just the American Revolution. I'm founder of the day today. So thank you so much for watching. I will be back. Make sure you like and subscribe, all that jazz. Put out videos 5 days a week. I will be back with another founder for you tomorrow.